Hey friends, thanks for joining us here at Freedom House. My name's Tom Wolf. I'm here this morning with my good friend Marc Lucenius and really excited about our topics today. So if you follow Freedom House, you've noticed the little videos coming out on the Fridays, and we call them Freedom Flares. And there's been a trend now for several of them to talk about peace, how to find peace in the midst of chaos. Mm-hmm. And so when Marc has written a book called Rest for the Restless, came out just recently, it is some assembly required, but hey, it was only $1. Okay, so this was a pretty good deal. If you want the finished version, it's going to cost you a little more. I will tell you up front, this book is worth every penny. You got to get it. You got to read it. You got to live it. This is a book you live out of. It's not a book you read and put on the shelf. And so I'm very excited how this fits in with what we've been doing. We try to hold to a 2 to 5 minute length. That's gone for today. We're just going to sit here and have a conversation because I'm excited about this book, and I really hit me right where I live.
Love it.
Sorry about that. So, Marc, tell us a little bit about yourself. You and I go kind of way back.
Yeah.
And there was kind of a break where we weren't really together much. And this is like a reunion here.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about it.
It's great. Hey, first of all, I'm a big fan of Freedom House. As a pastor in the area, I regularly find guys talking about the Freedom Fires and their involvement with your ministry and how it's given them freedom. And so, way to go. I remember when you were talking about this vision for this thing and how God was doing something in your life that was spilling out in the lives of others. So, way to go. This is something I'm really excited about as well. So, way to go. What was your question again?
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, hey, my family lives right here in Thornton, just outside of Westchester. We came to Westchester in 2017 to plant a church. We planted 938 Church in 2018, the day the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and have just enjoyed this run and being in this community. And about a year and a half ago, started getting the itch to check that box and write a book like I had the goal to do.
Rest for the Restless. Who's the intended audience for this book? Like every human above 18? Or?
Well, yes, in many ways. A couple years ago, I just started noticing just how tired people are. And there's a physical weariness, and there is emotional weariness, and a mental weariness. And what happens when you get tired, you get reactive. And so I just found people having a hard time taking initiative in life. I saw people getting into these reactive patterns. And as I was thinking about how to care for the people in my church, I started thinking about some of the seasons I've had of like deep exhaustion and burnout. And I started thinking, okay, what were the things that I did back then that helped me and that have kept me in the game and have kept me energized? And a message series came out of that. And then it seemed like that could end up becoming a book. I was like, 4 messages, 4 chapters. It got a little bit beyond that.
Yes, it did. I think everybody in the church that I know wrestles with this idea of Sabbath. Like our culture doesn't value it outside of the church. And it seems like even within the church, it's not really put out there in a way that becomes significant. And that's what I think made this book stand out from so many of the rest of them. It's like, I understand the concept of the Sabbath. Like, it's a great idea, God, but who could ever do it? You know, especially when you feel like it's this command thing you have to do, you know, and
Sure, and so it's become kind of irrelevant, right? And most people, when they think of the Sabbath, they think, well, that's the day I can't go to Chick-fil-A, right? So they're like, I can't go to Chick-fil-A that day, or they associate it with like the preacher from Footloose, like all the rules, all if it's fun, we gotta stop it, or they associate it with like prohibition and blue laws, and they associate it with the rules. Where fundamentally that's not remotely the vision that God had for the Sabbath?
I mean, I'm old enough, and I don't know when it transitioned, but I'm old enough to remember the blue laws in Pennsylvania.
Right. Yeah.
So everything was shut down Sunday. It was like a government enforced Sabbath, but it was kind of nice, you know. For most of us, I guess we undervalued it, and others became resentful, right? Look at it like prohibition. You could tell me what to do. But when I opened very early in the book, this is a quote: "The promise of the Sabbath is this: you can have a very full life and a very quiet heart." Now, I don't know anybody that wouldn't want that. When you put it that way, and the idea of looking at Sabbath as more than a commandment, but it's an invitation. It comes out of God's kindness to us, not it's not a punishment. Every 6 days, we get this other day that's like a punishment. We're not allowed to do anything. This reframes that. But I hear people saying, you know, in my mind, this is an awesome promise, if only it were possible.
Well, sure. And part of that's the messages we've heard. I've got 3 bookshelves all on leadership. And I love it, and I'll never not be a student of leadership. But they'll almost always activate all my ambitions. And I've got another 3 shelves on my bookshelf that are always talking about spiritual formation and how we can become more and more like Jesus. And oftentimes the underlying message is that our ambition is the enemy, right? And so, you know, I've got one source of wisdom that's activating my ambition, and the other one is tamping it down. But when you look at Jesus, there's nobody more ambitious than Jesus. He's like, okay, I'm going to redeem the world. I'm the new king. I'm going to build a kingdom. And yet, he carried his ambition in a way that was never burdensome. In fact, he said to his followers, and this is the heart of what you're talking about, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest."
Yeah.
And he says, "Learn from me." So it's a learning process. But the metaphor he uses, he says, "Take my yoke upon me." And he's using the version he's using an agricultural term, a yoke that in the ancient world and today, if you go out towards Lancaster, you'll see
Yes.
animals, beasts yoked together by a bar that enables them to do the work together to pull the plow to get the crops dealt with, right? And so in his very metaphor for rest, he's involving ambition and work. And his invitation isn't to not work. His invitation is to carry the work differently. He says, "Come to me and I will give you rest. Let's do this together." And it's a learning process. When you drop rules on people, you take all the process away. Right. You just say, "Do this." Jesus doesn't say, "Go obey the Sabbath." He says, "No, come to me and I will teach you a way of living out the true vision of the Sabbath."
So, yeah, that's great. I mean, I have here under that awesome promise, your book is helpful to show us how this is not only possible, but it's essential. We can't run, as Eldridge says, at the speed of the swipe.
Yes.
You know, we weren't built for that.
That's well said.
Yeah, we're built for pace and rhythm. And so the rhythms of rest and work are critical. And I don't think our culture values that. I think we've left, obviously, the blue laws, still kind of in existence in Lancaster County, but not here. And so one of the things I found about this book is we don't stop. Now, you know, I've curated a pretty regular spiritual life, and, you know, I guard it tremendously. And so I saw an interview with John Tyson, Pastor John Tyson, and he says, it's not optional. He said, I have to leave my office or leave my home with a full well because I don't know what God will ask of me that day.
Yes.
And, you know, working primarily with men trapped in sexual addiction, it's dark. It's a lot of darkness.
Yeah.
2 men just in the last week with child issues pornography issues.
Yeah.
They're both facing prison. And so I'm thinking, we've missed a lot if we don't take the time to leave with a full well. And this, rhythms of rest and sitting before the Lord and practice of spiritual disciplines, and you cover the gamut in here. That's what I really liked. It was a balanced view. I try very diligently to get guys into some rhythm of spiritual disciplines. Just stop trying to outrun this thing. The answer is to slow down, actually, and find what you need in these times of rest. So I think that your book has some profound principles in it that every man on a journey of recovery has to learn to embrace, or it's not going to be a successful recovery. And I know it extends out beyond that by a huge amount, but by and large, our audience here probably this morning is men. And so, and men seem to be the most resistant to slowing down, right? You just don't understand. I got work to do.
Well, and we just need to recognize that work is a gateway drug to other things, right? And so most of us, when are we going to relapse? We're going to relapse when work doesn't go well, right? Because we've built our identity into work. And when our identity is wrecked or something's taken away from us that we are getting out of that work, we got to fill that gap, right? And that's when we're most vulnerable to, the substance or porn or whatever. When our identity, when we put it in something other than God, when we put it into our work, when that doesn't go well, that leaves us most vulnerable to relapse and acting out.
Sure, and I find that men have come into this house looking for help with an identity that was given to them.
Sure.
And then they owned it, and sometimes it definitely feeds into their work. For lots of guys that they can't work productively even because their thing is that I'm a loser. I'll never amount to anything. So you did have a powerful short story in here about one of your early jobs that I thought really illustrated this whole thing of identity.
Right.
Would you do that for us?
Yeah. I'll set up the job. Let me go back a little bit in my life.
Sure.
Had some dysfunction in my life. In my family, I had great parents. I loved them. They stayed together. They got a lot right. But they had some struggles in life. And in the midst of those struggles, I found myself working around them. And when you're ever in the city and you find the wind going a little bit faster, it's because it's picking up speed going around the buildings. And that was something I learned in my childhood. And then when I got my first job, one of the things they said to me is they said, hey, I was 15. I didn't really know what I was doing. And they said, look, you need to start working faster. Until you start working faster, you might lose your job. And in that moment, I said to myself, if I'm never going to allow anybody to accuse me of not working hard. And so what that did is I decided to start working harder, walking faster, and making, whether it was real or not, making it look like I was working really hard. And what ended up happening is I started getting rewarded for that at that work. And then when I got into ministry, everyone loves somebody who works hard and drives hard. I knew how to move fast around the buildings. And I continued to get rewarded for that until I hit my mid-30s. And I needed to reach down and grab a little bit more for the next hill. And there wasn't anything there. And that's when I knew that I had been living beyond my means mentally, emotionally, physically, and the burnout was coming.
Yeah, and folks, if you're listening, this is a vivid illustration of how quickly an identity can be put in us, and we'll own that thing.
Yeah.
But the message that begins to formulate over our life is, I am loved when I produce. I am loved when I'm the hardest worker in the place. And then guys just get burned out. We can't live under that kind of thing. And we're always living into what Eldridge would say, a lesser story, right?
Sure.
The work beneath the work, I think you call it.
Yep.
And the work beneath my work, I'm all of this, doing all these things, but the work beneath the work is, if I don't do them, who am I? Yeah. I'll be the loser, right? And I think I don't know how much women grasp for identity and purpose, but every man does.
Yes.
And I'm only saying that not to slate women, but my world is men. So I know every man grasps for that.
Well, results are intoxicating, right? Because if I can produce results, then I have agency, and in so many ways I'm like God. God speaks and He creates. When we speak and do things and activate things, we create, and it's intoxicating to feel like God, that our work does something, makes something, but when we detach it from Him, it becomes the story of becoming God, of all the things I can control by the things I do and by my effort and by the applause I can get from it. And detached of any sort of boundary, well, it will exhaust and deplete us because, as I learned a long time ago, and I continue to have to remind myself, I am not God. I am not limitless. I have a tank that can be emptied.
Yeah, and identity becomes so important. The worst time for some guys' lives is the idea of retirement. It's like, but I am what I do.
Sure.
Instead of who I am.
Well, and every single one of these comes down to a specific story. And one of the things I do in the book is help people recognize that this work underneath the work of proving ourselves or finding ourselves significant or making sure that everybody thinks that we're working really hard is rooted in a story. And Sabbath also has a story. And when we understand the story of Sabbath, it gives us a different way of thinking about ourselves. For example, there's two places where God commands us to Sabbath. They're in the Ten Commandments. The first time God says, look, you need to Sabbath. Why? Because I Sabbath. And that goes back to creation. God rested on the seventh day. Did He rest because He was tired? No, God wasn't tired.
He was exhausted.
And Sabbath isn't here for us because we're tired. God rested to enjoy the work He has done. And the fundamental principle of the Sabbath is enjoyment. And what messes us up with a Sabbath is like, well, I don't need a Sabbath because I'm not tired.
Right.
No.
Right.
The reason why you want to Sabbath is that you want to be like God, someone who enjoys all the work that is done. Whether it was a good week or a bad week, everybody gets to Sabbath. Whether people succeeded or not, whether people belong or not, everybody gets to Sabbath. And because Sabbath isn't fundamentally about work, Sabbath is fundamentally about enjoyment.
That's
and
awesome.
enjoying what God had created, enjoying the work that you did, whether you did a good job or not, but enjoying the life you've had. And what's interesting, when you go back into that original Genesis story, you see that the day begins in the evening and it ends in the day. The fundamental approach to life that we see is that we begin, in so many ways in the Hebrew world, the life begins with a meal when the family comes together. And then there's rest, and then there's work. We work out of the enjoyment and rest that God gives us. We don't work for enjoyment or rest. That's the first fundamental storyline of Sabbath. There's a second one I can get to, but I want to.
Go ahead. I'm just thinking this changes everything, right? And
and that's where we see the gospel of Jesus. We don't, because of what Jesus has done for us, we don't work for His love and affection. Jesus on the cross said, "It is finished." Every box has been checked. We are not working through our lives to get our approval from God or to prove our worthiness or prove that we belong. We have received that, and so we go into life out of a sense of enjoyment. We go to our life out of a sense of rest. The second time God commands a Sabbath, it's in the Ten Commandments right before they go into the Promised Land. He says, look, you need the Sabbath. Why? Because you're no longer a slave. See, in the ancient world, slaves didn't get days off.
Right.
They never got a day off. And in an agricultural world, even taking a day off, allowing your workers to get a day off, like the upper class people might have gotten a day off, but everybody else who lived on a farm, they never got a day off. Why? Because it was economic suicide, right? You farm less land if you take days off. Well, the Israelite people weren't going to be like everyone else. They're not slaves. The harvest isn't based upon their efforts. They trust God for the harvest. And so they can take the day off. They can be the most well-rested people in the world. What was going to distinguish the people of Israel from the people of the world was how they were able to enjoy and live their lives well-rested. They would be unique and different by the way they approached their work, by the way they trusted their God with the outcomes, and they didn't need to slave away. And that's one of the things that gets to us when we find our identity in our work becomes our master.
Yeah,
and when our master doesn't please us, we go to our other masters, right?
Right.
And Sabbath says God is our master, and He allows us to enjoy the life we've been given first. He allows us to rest first, and then we work. And when we work, we can trust Him with the outcomes.
100%. Wow, that's really well done. And I think we're going to have some conversations in the groups in this house over this, because this is, who wouldn't want to do this? Okay, let's get real practical. What about the guy that works shift work? Or, what about, I don't know, like pastors whose job is Sunday, right? And didn't Paul say something about it's not about the day, it's about a day?
Sure.
But how do you work that? You're a go-getter guy. Like,
in the book, we don't talk much about rules. Part of it is the vision of understanding my story, not based upon what I've done for myself or what God has done for me, and learning to take the life God's given me, sharing that easy yoke with Jesus. But God does say practically, you need to rest on the Sabbath. In the ancient world, the priests would have to do this as well. They had to work on the Sabbath. And so what I have found to be a real practical, helpful thing for people is to encourage people to just shut down their production and consumption for 24 hours. I encourage people to think in a Hebrew term. Go from, say, for a lot of folks, it can be Saturday night to Sunday night.
Okay.
Yeah, and see whatever you can do to keep yourself from thinking in terms. Wall Street wants more than anything else from us. The dominant story driver in our life is right now is Wall Street. What they want is they want us to produce more. They want us to consume more. So find that 24 hours for a lot of pastors, it's whenever ministry stops on Sunday to 24 hours into Monday. That's how it functions for me. Okay. Some folks ministry take Friday, but find your 24 hours to not live out the world story of me as producer, me as consumer. You can wait to spend the money. You can wait to make that order. You can, and like, are there exceptions? Of course there are exceptions. Here's where it matters. When I was in my early 30s, I could project the person I wanted to be to my wife, to my kids, to everything else. But life picks up a pace, and we pick up a certain set of responsibilities that I can't project the person I want to be in the places where I am. I just have to be that person. Okay. So if I'm not well rested, it's going to leak out of me.
Yeah.
And when you're tired, it's like that Snickers commercial. You're not yourself. You're negative. You're grumpy. You don't have faith and hope and confidence. And when you're a leader and you can't breathe faith, hope, and confidence and stuff, it affects everybody. And so, as somebody who bears responsibility, who I am. And this is particularly important of retired people. Why? Because they're influencing generations of people behind them. And if you're moving into retirement and you're all of a sudden grumpy because you don't have work to prop up your self-identity, you got to deal with that. Why? Because your children and grandchildren are picking up your vibe on life, right? And so managing our sense of rest so that we can be the people who bring hope, life, confidence, be the people who cross barriers into challenging situations, bring courage into those situations. We have to be those folks. And if we allow ourselves to get depleted and exhausted, well, that plays itself in reactivity, and it shapes everyone around us. And the stakes are way too high for us to allow ourselves to get exhausted and depleted and to allow that to happen to those we lead and influence.
it's not just when you're in your earlier years of, building a family, building a career, it hits you again at my age. I mean, I don't see you as a retirement guy either, but here at the end now, managing my time has become super important. I can see the end from here. I'm playing in the fourth quarter, and I've reached my biblical expiration date, so I'm in overtime, and that's awesome. But I can see the end, and I'm like, God, I still got fire. I still got energy. I need to sprint to the finish. I need to get all this stuff done that I'm still dreaming about. And it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Who are you trusting? So I've built a legacy model for the church, for the Freedom House, to make sure that goes on. And I'm moving into that idea still at this age that it's not all on me. It never was all on me, right? But now I have to live that out in a substantive way. And I guess, for my 4 kids are watching, what does retirement look like? Are you ever retiring? I said, no, but I will slow down. I mean,
Well, coming back to the metaphor of enjoyment at the forefront of what Sabbath is, and so much about what life is, right? Westminster Confession of Faith says, the whole chief duty of man is to enjoy God and glorify Him forever. When we, long time from now, Tom, at your memorial service, we're going to talk about all the things you did. No, we're going to talk about who you are, and that's what everybody does at a memorial service. They talk about who that person is, and what do our children and the people around us want from us first, more than anything else? They want to know our enjoyment. What do my kids want from me? They want me to enjoy them for who they are.
Yeah.
And a Sabbath lifestyle is fundamentally enjoying the life that God has given us, with the people that God has given us, in the place that God has given us, regardless of the challenges He's put in front of us. And when we do that, that's where legacy is formed. Why? Because when I love anybody who enjoys me, right? And I respond to them.
Yeah.
And that's deeply creative.
Yeah.
That's deeply creative and powerful. When we deplete ourselves, when we find ourselves in reaction mode, we're not enjoying. Then we have to leverage, we have to manipulate, we have to just grind it out, and that's felt, right? Legacy is built by initiative, creativity, and by the people we enjoy the most.
Yeah. So I know I sounded a little frantic here at the end, but I need to also say that this is the best time of our lives in terms of balance and all that. And I do really believe that, in the Hebrew culture, right, it wasn't about what you'd done, it's about what you pass on. It is about we live forever through our descendants.
Yeah.
So that's a huge, good word.
Tom, think about the family that you have here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is a family of men who are enjoying one another and who are learning to enjoy their spouses in a way they never have before, who are activated to be able to enjoy their children in ways they've never had before. And think of all the healing that has happened as their spouses and their children learn to enjoy and not react to the brokenness that had been handed down generation to generation. Freedom House is teaching people to end that and live out of the overflow of God's grace and enjoyment. It's living it out, and this is a legacy worth celebrating.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. On my best day, I can sit there and say, Jesus, thank you. You did all this.
Yeah. You did.
So
You did.
I've known you for, 20 plus years maybe, and I know that you're a busy guy. I know you have produced a lot of stuff in your life. I've been in amazement, right? The whole doctoral degree and all that with a family and a lot going on, and you're a busy guy. So to kind of wrap up, I have a little bit of curiosity around how did you do this? Where did that time come from? On everything else that you're doing, you put this book together, and it's like a gift.
No, it's a gift to me, and so honestly, I wanted to do it a long time, and it felt like God said, "This is a moment you could do it." and I had a little bit of space in my own sort of set of responsibilities. My kids were at a place where I could focus, and I found this guy online who said, look, if you do what I tell you to do, you can write your book in 30 days. So the guy sent me an email every single day, and I did what he told me to do. And he said, write for 25 minutes, take a pause, write for another 25 minutes. I was able to keep up with him for 16 days, and then I lost track. But in those 16 days, I wrote about 75% of the material.
Wow.
Right? And then having the momentum, having that much momentum gave me the hope to come back to it. Right? And so anytime you do something like this, and I write this in the forward, that like, stuff like this is something that you've received, there's no real new novel thought, but it's vision and ideas and stories that God had given to me. So I was able to just kind of put it down there, and then you get a team of folks helping you, whether it's editing or helping you think through this, that, the other, and you figure out a way to get that thing published.
Well, I appreciate how many critical, really awesome thoughts were brought together in one place. Everything from Sabbath being an invitation to practicing spiritual disciplines, and a big fan of silence and solitude. You might not be able to tell from this, but I love the silence. And so, man, I just want to thank you.
It's a gift, Tom. You were a gift to so many, and to me, I'm so grateful for our friendship over the years.
This is a gift to everybody. So thank you. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for your 2 sets of 25 minutes a day for however long it was. And I'm really thrilled about the outcome of it all. So thank you so much for being here, being willing to sit with me for this time. And I hope there'll be more times.
We'll do it, brother. It's been good.
Love you, man.